You know, I don't think this is an essential computer skill, though I had to categorize that. I'm just going to change it to open source software because we're talking about software. We've been talking about system software. We've been talking about operating systems. We've been talking about Linux. And I've even mentioned open source software because Linux is an open source software project. It was created out of the open source movement. And I need you to know, you need to know for your own benefit. I don't care if you know it, but from the perspective of a teacher, of me putting together a lesson plan, and for me making you a computer guru and knowing as much about computers as possible, at least knowing what you need to know about computers to be very effective with computers in your life and to be a computer guru and for have people be like, wow, you know a lot about computers. You need to know what open source software is. So what is open source software? Open source software is when you talk about software, there's something called the source code. Even when you go to web pages, right? So if I was to go to Reddit and then right-click Reddit, and I could choose View Page Source, and that's going to bring me code. It's going to bring me code, right? I right-clicked Reddit and chose View Page Source, and there is the code for that page. Kind of wild. Well, with all software, there is code, and it's known as there's the source code, and then there's the compiled code, right? And the source code is the code that was used to write the program. So if I created a program in like Java or C# or C++ or Visual Basic, the code that I wrote would be the source code, and then the executable code would be the compiled code. And open source means that the code used to create the software is open to everybody in the world. Anybody could download it, anybody could work with it, anybody could change it, and then they could upload their changed version wherever they want, right? And so open source software, the open source movement, is people contributing their time for the love of the game, for the love of programming, to work on projects that they like, and they want to make something just for fun because at work they're told what to do. And when they leave work, they can do whatever the hell they want. And so, when they leave work, they create things the way they want to create them. And Linux is, one of the main ones that came out of the open source movement, one of the biggest ones, right? And so it's an operating system, and it's created by this dude, and started by this guy, and created by tons of people. And so it's a good thing to know about. It's a good thing to know about that there's this open source movement. Last thing I'll show you about the open source movement, open source DIY civilization starter kit. All right, so there's this thing called the civilization starter kit at open source ecology. Is that it? Open source ecology. Yeah, and it's a civilization starter kit. And you could come here, and this is like an open source movement for creating machines that are essential to starting a civilization or to running a civilization. And so they have a whole bunch of different machines here that you could come in, and you can learn how to make your own dang tractor. You can make your own tractor instead of spending $100,000 for a John Deere. Here are the blueprints, here are the plans, here are the parts lists, and you can build your own tractor. You could build your own tractor or whatever. Brick, you could get your own thing to build bricks, right? And or a micro. So it's really pretty awesome. It's like the big do-it-yourself kind of community, for building things that you could use to basically run society. And if you're a farmer and you don't want to pay for stuff, or if you're living in a less developed country and you need resources and you can't afford the big tools, the expensive manufactured tools, you could create your own here. And there's an awesome talk about it. So if we go to open source ecology, let's just do that and do TED Talk. Let's see what comes up. Here we go, TED Talk on open source ecology. And then there's also this one right here. Those might be the same ones. I'd go to the one which is right here by TED.com. Anyhow, that's it. It's a cool TED Talk. And what you're learning in this video is the open source software movement. But the open source movement goes to all different areas. And there's that open source ecology, which is totally cool. So it's really important for you to know about what open source is, and have a good understanding of that, and realize and understand that this thing is going on out there where people creating stuff because they like creating it and not because it's just some corporation trying to make money. And that's a cool deal. That's a cool deal.